One of the things that you brought up there that really stuck with me was this idea that you want to live your life in the way your parents were living their life back then. Do you feel like you didn't grow up with a lot of limitations in your mindset or boundaries? Because I think what you were saying is that a lot of, for example, you gave the example that a lot of women feel like, oh, by the time I'm 30, I should have had kids by now, or by the time I'm this. And I think time and society place a lot of these boundaries and barriers. Did you feel more free from them because of how you were parented? Or did at any point in your life, did these become a part of your education as well?
There's a couple things. So one, my dad grew up really poor. He was born at the end of the Great Depression and grew up, my grandpa was a preacher. They had no money, like very, very poor. My dad only could go to college because he joined the Air Force and was able to go on a GI Bill. My mom immigrated to the US during the Vietnam War and came to America with literally nothing. So between the two of their stories, I thought if they come from nothing, they come from war, they come from the Great Depression, and they could make this life for themselves, I can do anything possible because they've given me this great life that I could have, that anything is possible here. So if I don't live my life to the fullest, it's almost a disservice to the sacrifices that they made for me to be here. My mom is also Vietnamese. So I grew up with a very much a tiger mom who was like, you have to do these things, go to school, you need to graduate, you need to get a job. But she also taught to me independence. And what she told me was never rely on anyone else for anything. You need to be able to fully support yourself. So if you're in a relationship or a situation, you can walk away and not feel like you have to rely on another person for something, or be in a scenario you don't want to be in because you need this person for this thing. And maybe I took it a little far. I went overly independent in my life. And so growing up, I told my parents, I want to be a television host. And then my mom was like, okay, you need a realistic job. Like being on TV is not realistic. So I said, okay, my backup job is going to be PR. So I went to school for journalism. My backup was PR. I interned in PR in college. It was my first job out of college. I was taking celebrities to interviews. And I was like, I still want to be the one interviewing them. Like I don't want to be behind the camera. I want to be in front of the camera. And so I started working as a TV host, and then Instagram and YouTube came around in 2012. And I had a reel, and to send my reel places, I needed to upload it somewhere. So I uploaded it to YouTube, and I had to send the link to places to go on interviews. And so I would send them this link. That was my first YouTube video. And then I had a channel. So I was like, I may as well start uploading makeup tutorials because I have this place. This is very early YouTube days, 10 years ago. And after 2 years, I was able to do it full time. And I told my parents, I'm going to quit to do the internet. And they were like, quit to do the internet? Like, what is this? And so even though they support me now, I don't think they let me know that all things were possible because of their own stories, but I didn't know at the time that I could make it a career for myself. And they were definitely a little bit skeptical. Now they're like the most supportive people. But at the beginning, it's like internet full time. Yeah. Like, what is this?
Parents always want us to be safe. Like parents always want their kids to be safe. But it's almost like the safest thing parents can do is let kids take their own risks. I feel the same with my parents. Like my mom moved to England when she was 16 and they built their life. Her brothers were like 18 and 19 and they built a life. Whereas when I was moving to New York at 28, it was like, no. Like, are you okay, my baby? And I'm like, Mom, I'm 28 years old. Like you were 16. But they forget that. They forget the pain and the sacrifice and the risk they took on. And they want to shelter you away from it. When you made that decision, were you so convinced that this is right for me, I know it's the thing? Or was it hard? Because I feel like when you did that step, it wasn't a thing to be a YouTuber yet. It wasn't a career path that someone could say, I want to be a creator, mom and dad. Look at what XYZ are doing. There weren't any role models at that time. And so when you did that, it was even a bigger risk than it is today. But I find so many people who listen to this show today struggle to break out of what their parents think of them. So when your parents, it sounds like you have such a close relationship with your parents. They love you, you love them. Was there a part of you that felt you were letting them down by doing this? Or did you never letting them down. I was never worried about letting them down. I think I just had to prove them. So like my dad is very much like, okay, go do whatever you want. Like, this is great. Like he grew up in a time there's not even phones. So like to have a job on the internet seems so insane to him. But my mom is very much like, show me what you can do and then I'll support you. And so I had to show her these opportunities. And I think when I went on my first brand trip and I could bring her on the trip, she was like, oh, you could travel for work. You could go places. I went to Thailand and I took her with me and she couldn't believe that you could have this job
job on the internet and create this for yourself. And so I was never worried about disappointing them because I always believed in myself. Like if I want to do something, I know that it's possible. And now we're in a really great place where you can see people's careers that you want to emulate or you look up to. But at that time, there was no one we were figuring it all out at the same time. And luckily, it was very early days of like influencers having like managers and teams. And I happened to get an agency. And I think that helped legitimize it to my family. And then they saw over time, like, okay, you can actually like make money doing this. And here we are a decade later.
I love that. That's amazing. Congrats on having the strength at a time. I think that's underplayed, like how hard it is when something is brand new to kind of bet on it. Because you didn't have the benefit of hindsight of how successful this thing was going to be or how big it was going to be.
No idea. At the beginning, people were PayPaling me $50 to post something.
Wow.
So I was like, that's how early it was. And it was like, you would pay me $50 to post something? Let's go. Like I was so excited.